Welcome, dear students, to another lecture in the subject of entrepreneurship. Some time back, I have discussed with you for what is an entrepreneur, what is entrepreneurship all about, who is a serial entrepreneur, and what is intrapreneurship. Further to which we discussed about businessman and the entrepreneur and what is the difference between the businessman and an entrepreneur. So let us take a quick recap of the differences in a businessman and in an entrepreneur. As we discussed previously, a businessman takes the traditional business that is already existing with him and he is simply propagating that business, exploring it further. Whereas when it comes to entrepreneurship, entrepreneur has to have a new idea which is unique and no more existing before, and he has to put forth this idea and convert it in a business, and likewise he has to take it ahead. He is the core decision maker himself. He is his own rival, he is his own friend, because an entrepreneur may not have any competitor as compared to a businessman. Businessman, wherein his business is already established and there may be number of competitors along with the businessman, unlike the entrepreneur is working on something new, and so he needs to be more innovative. He needs to take himself ahead, or he can pull himself back. He is his own rival. As I discussed earlier, business is all about keeping yourself busy. A businessman is always busy. A businessman appears to be like a person with a fat stomach and a big briefcase, a lot of money in the briefcase, living a good life. But all the time he is busy. What is he busy for? He is busy for managing his already established business. Whereas when it comes to an entrepreneur has to set up his own enterprise. He has to be innovative. He is not a very big person. He has to be down to earth. He has to give enough time to his own personal life as well. So he is not a very well established person as appears to be with a businessman. When we look at the terminology of a businessman, businessman appears to be a more traditional word. A person who is doing some business, simply buying a product and selling it at a different price, that's a business. Opening a shop is a business. And as we have seen traditionally, manufacturing a product and distribution of a product, that's again a business. Whereas entrepreneurship is revolutionary in nature. It talks more about creation, innovation. A businessman's business is already established, so he can live a good life. He knows that his business is going to flourish for another decade, whereas an entrepreneur has always to take the risk. He is always living the risky life. He may not know how tomorrow will look like for him. And a businessman, again, when he is doing his business for years and years, he is always worried for tomorrow, as in, whereas an entrepreneur, although he doesn't know what is going to happen tomorrow, but his psychology needs to not to be worried, but he needs to be an excited person. He is excited to face tomorrow, and he knows that tomorrow something different will happen as did not happen today. A businessman looks for profit, whereas an entrepreneur looks for people. Why? Because he is a whole human being, as we say. Entrepreneur is a whole human being. He has to bring employment. He has to make up a team. He has to care for his team. And he has to be in good talking terms with the public, with the customer, everywhere. So that is another difference. Further, a businessman has an active income, whereas an entrepreneur has a passive income. Why is this difference there? A businessman is somebody who is directly involved in his business, whereas an entrepreneur gradually, when he starts up his own venture, he plays vital role in the organization, but gradually as time passes by, he becomes a passive player for his organization. Why he becomes passive player? Because he now gives chance to other people who are working in the organization to work on various aspects, and he works as a consultant to all these people. So he is a passive earner. He is not an active member in the enterprise. But that takes place at a later stage of being an entrepreneur. A businessman, when we talk about, a businessman is a market player, whereas, as we said, the entrepreneur is a market leader. So businessman has to look for his role to exist in the market, whereas entrepreneur's role is to derive the market and give a new direction to the market, so as to accommodate more customers or more suppliers in an area that was no longer existing in the past. So he acts more like a leader as compared to a businessman who acts like a player. A businessman is well established, so he is the person with a big fat stomach and a briefcase carrying with him with a lot of money, so he doesn't have to worry much about his finance. His business is already established, whereas it is the entrepreneur who may live in a very small place and who is still worried for his finances, for his new project. He is still looking up for the funds. So as far as his liabilities are concerned, financially he is worried about. But now when we look at the other side of it, it comes a binding on a businessman to take care of his finances. He is not he never achieves this financial freedom. He is always into that cycle of profits and losses and profits and losses. Whereas when we talk about an entrepreneur, his idea may sell, his idea may not sell. If his idea may not sell, his business is not going to establish itself. So in that case, he has achieved the financial freedom as far as his own freedom is concerned. He need not worry much about the crores of rupees and the lakhs of rupees flowing in and out of the enterprise. Now, when we talk about a businessman always gives more importance to the part of the business world. Whereas, when we talk about an entrepreneur, the entrepreneur gives importance to the business world as a whole. So the entrepreneur is playing a holistic approach as compared to a businessman who is playing the atomistic approach. So my dear students, what did we learn so far when we spoke about differences in a businessman and an entrepreneur? So we have learned that entrepreneurship is not a very easy thing to do as simply doing a business. Business, you already have some set of products with you, or you can be a distributor in that case. You need not be worried about any innovation over there, and you need not be worried about any infrastructure over there. Running a franchisee is different than having your own manufacturing unit. Running a manufacturing unit is different from running a manufacturing unit that has evolved a product, and this is what is about entrepreneurship. Secondly, we have learned that an entrepreneur is a business person who has evolved into a more complete person. So as we say, entrepreneur is a complete person. Why is a complete person? Because he has started his own career as an employee, further to which he looked up for an opportunity, he grabbed the opportunity, he walked into that pool of struggle, and further to which he has accomplished his own organization, and now he is probably monitoring his organization. So he has gone through all these different stages any person should go about. He never inherits anything, but he evolves things. Thirdly, we have also learned that if we look at the position of a puppeteer and a puppet, so a puppet dances the way the puppeteer wants the puppet to dance. Now, my dear students, you will be really surprised to know that an entrepreneur is a puppeteer, whereas a businessman is a puppet. How come? How come is this true? So when we look into this and think about it, entrepreneur evolves a new product. A businessman may buy the entrepreneur's product at a later stage. He may distribute that product at a later stage, but the innovation remains with the entrepreneur. So who is going to drive is the entrepreneur, and the direction will be given by the entrepreneur, and who is going to follow is a businessman. So that is what are the major differences between the entrepreneur and a businessman. At the end of it, entrepreneur is a person who even manages a businessman. So now if you want to be somebody, you better be an entrepreneur and better not be a businessman. At the end of it, it remains your choice. But when you will be learning entrepreneurship, definitely you will inculcate some skills that will help you to be one of the best employees in the organization, one of the best innovators in the world. Ahead of this, let us go to the next topic, that is the journey of an entrepreneur. So, how does the entrepreneur start his life with? Entrepreneurs are not always born rich. Every entrepreneur needs to inculcate some basic skills. Skills are never born. In the school life, in the college life, whatever knowledge you gain, they remain in the book. But you need to balance this knowledge with the practical world and learn for how to implement the knowledge in the practical world. Now, how you are going to look at it? Definitely, you will have to work and gain some work experience after working in an organization. So, all entrepreneurs generally, initially play the role of being an employee. So, they are bounded with a company and they have to perform their duty towards the organization. But while doing this duty, there are a lot of on-job skills that these entrepreneurs learn. They also try to make positive use of all resources, the maximum use of the time that they spend in the organization, and likewise they try to gain as much as what they can while working with the organization. And there comes a day where they become so strong that they are capable of developing, they are capable of establishing their own enterprise. By this time, they have even made some small savings. With this small savings and with a good handset of experience, and as everybody's age grows up, definitely that doesn't mean that all entrepreneurs need to be pretty old. In fact, we have so many entrepreneurs who have started working in the teen age as well. So finally, the employee who was so long working with an organization now becomes an employer. He has his own idea and he feels that whatever work is done with this organization, I may not be able to do the whole of it, but I can constantly be doing some work for a couple of years. I can still be linked with the same organization, but now I will no more be an employee. I may be a supplier to my company. And hence, from employee, he becomes an employer. Fine. Now, when he becomes an employer, what he has to do, dear students? He has to manage his business. He has to manage the businessman. Why? Because, as I said, whatever product he is going to innovate, he will have to look for some distribution of that product in the market, and that he can get it done through the businessman. At the same time, he has to look at how his business operates. He has to look at the marketing. He has to look at the sales. He has further to look at the financial cash flows in the organization. But as time grows, this entrepreneur simply monitors his business. He simply sits at a remote place, he can monitor his business, he can control his business. And that is where everything about an entrepreneur evolves from an employee. And that is where, it strikes to me, if you look at the success factor of entrepreneurs, more successful are the entrepreneurs who have had some work experience prior to their own markets on macro and micro level, and they have to study what is going to be the need of the market, how many people may buy this product, how much part of the industry is ready to accept your product, what is going to be the advantage if your product sustains for a longer time, what is going to be the type of customer you are going to sell your product to, which is we generally call as the market segment. So studying all these four things into at a broader level, the prior to at a macro level and the later to at a micro level, further to which the entrepreneur also has to think about with he and his own team. The team compromises of himself, his coordinates, collaterals, it compromises of his customers, it also compromises of his suppliers. He has to see to it that his particular enterprise fits into the supply chain of the entire business. He should be able to fit himself into this particular supply chain. He should also be able to fit himself in the value chain. At the same time, he has to study what is going to be the mission, what is going to be the aspiration, what is going to be the possibility of risk taking whenever he will launch or he will manufacture a particular product. So opportunity evaluation is a broader aspect to that of idea generation. Not all ideas can sustain and not all ideas can be converted and brought into reality by looking at the right opportunity. Opportunity evaluation is very difficult to do, and believe me, dear friends, out of 100 ideas that come into an entrepreneur's mind, only 2 or 3 ideas may cross the opportunity evaluation part. How to sell the product, where to sell the product, which industry to associate the product, how to be a part of the supply chain, how to be a part of the value chain. These all things need to be taken care of in the opportunity evaluation, and the evaluation needs to be done at a macro as well as a micro level. Out of all parts, the opportunity evaluation, if it goes right, then and then the entrepreneur will definitely succeed ahead. Now that he has an idea and he has found the right opportunity to put up his product in front of the market, he has not yet manufactured the product, but his idea has become more sustainable, I should say. Further to which, what he has to do is he has to create a business proposal, or I call it as a business plan. Business plan is a document that is generally made to convince the venture capitalist. Venture capitalist is the person who is going to fund you for your own enterprise. As I told you, all entrepreneurs are not born rich. All entrepreneurs may not have those probably the money givers who are always ready to lend the money as a part of friends and parents and relatives. So wherein he creates this business plan that compromises of a synopsis, an executive summary. It compromises of the resources required to carry on with the business. It compromises of the financial plan. It compromises of the operational plan of the business. It also compromises of the turnover period and the exit plan, how to come out of this particular business in a couple of years. This particular plan needs to be shown to who all? So this needs to be shown to the government agencies, to the banks, to the fund providers, the partners, so as to convince them and so as to establish the business ahead. Now, writing a business plan itself is a skill, and how to convince the venture capitalist, that is another skill. While you interact with the venture capitalist. Who is a venture capitalist, dear students? Venture capitalist can be a group of people, it can be a bank, it can be a government agency that is going to fund your project. It can be a larger organization, it can be a multinational company that is going to fund for your smaller enterprise. So these are fund providers. So you have to convince them from all angles. Not only that, but you have to do what you are saying while you are convincing these people. That means you have to talk about the facts and the figures. You need not talk about your dreams. So it is advised that whenever you approach the venture capitalist, you have to speak the little, speak to the point. Whatever presentation probably you will carry as an entrepreneur, it should talk more about the gains, the business gains, and the service that is provided in the market and how people are going to benefit. So how are you going to facilitate the society and how are you going to gain money? That is what you need to learn in while creating the business plan and while tackling with the venture capitalist. The next part is, after the creation of the business plan, is the business model. What is a business model? So when the entrepreneur starts with his own enterprise, he has to follow some protocols. He has to live by a particular model wherein the protocols are established and he has to work accordingly. So a business model gives a general idea, the terms, conditions for how to run the business. It talks about how to operate the business, how to market the business, and how to sell the product. It may act as a guideline for your business. It may help the entrepreneur to sustain with his so-called competitors. So a business model further needs to be established by the entrepreneur. And then he can now think of setting up his enterprise. That is the next phase. Setting up an enterprise, the very first part comes is, now that you have got the funds to set up your enterprise, you have the idea that is very concrete with you now. You have found the right opportunity to put forth your idea. What all you need to do now? Very first, you need to register for your small enterprise. You may need a physical space. Without a physical space, nowhere you are allowed to do any business. So you have to buy, or you can take a place on rent, and that is where the physical space comes into existence. Setting up an enterprise also involves how many people are going to work, how many people have you employed, how many associates are there. It also compromises of the few protocols that you have to set up. It also talks about production. It talks about, after a couple of years, expansion, and expansion may be in terms of production expansion or product expansion. It can be in terms of physical location, you are expanding it. It can also talk about sale of the physical space, moving to some other physical space. So that is all, these all things you need to look by whenever you are setting up the enterprise, but not as compared to opportunity evaluation, as compared to the business plan. Not so very important is setting up the enterprise. Now that the entrepreneur has even set up his enterprise and he is working in the enterprise, he has to further monitor and control, and that is a wonderful task an entrepreneur has to do. Is these are nothing but the days, the time that has come when he can eat the fruits of whatever seeds he has sown. So here he has to passively control over his organization, and he has to let some trustworthy person operate on the organization, and he can also work as a consultant for his own business. He can further spend his time by looking at some other suppliers, looking at the clients, the customers, taking care of them, and that is where he can spend his maximum time. So he has now moved away from the idea, the opportunity, the product development, the innovation, creativity. He is simply now flourishing or taking care of his already flourished business. So that is what is the time for him to eat the fruits in the process of monitoring and control. The last part of this entrepreneur life cycle, my dear friends, is the process of changeover. So in the process of changeover, while eating the fruits from a particular business, definitely the entrepreneur may be a little hesitant to eat the same fruit for years and years, because he cannot remain at a place for a longer time. Some other idea evolves into his mind. He may find loopholes in his own setup, and he may come there by innovating a new product. He may give up his current business and he may start with a new business. So here, changeover may be as compared to what role he is playing. A considerable change has occurred. Then the point of time when he was just thinking while working in a company, he was simply thinking for finding some loophole and making his own business, being a supplier of the company. And now where has he reached? Now he is simply sitting at a corner and monitoring his business. Again, his mind is free. So he will definitely think for, can I manufacture a new product, or can I look for a better service? Can I further expand my business and make it an international business? So he retires at the end of it from the current business. He may catch hold of the new business, grab a new opportunity and start with a new enterprise. So this is a beautiful story, or I should say the ladder the entrepreneur goes with and climbs with, and that is where the whole process of being an entrepreneur into itself is full of excitement, and the entire life cycle itself is a never ending life cycle. And as I said earlier, who is rival of an entrepreneur? It is the entrepreneur himself. Unless and until he wants to finish, he cannot finish himself, he cannot finish his thoughts. So years by years, an entrepreneur can execute number of businesses, and he can evolve new products, he can give better services, couple of services, different types of services. He can work in different areas of the industry. And that is where we end up with this session. So I hope that today you are clear with who an entrepreneur is, and you are also clear with the beautiful journey an entrepreneur goes through. Thank you.